If you continue to trust the government and Wall Street, you're going to continue to get abused by them. Not only do they have plans for your money, they have the most talented, well-paid people on the planet employed to extract that money from your pocket and put it in theirs.
The tax code is just a game, and people don't even know the game of the tax code.
The role of owning a business, it's not to make money. The goal of the business is to make money that you then use to then go acquire assets, and then those assets pay for your house and your car. And most entrepreneurs, all we're ever taught is how to make money, because that's where our focus is. When you're broke and waiting tables, you only have one goal, and that's to go make more money. But you're not taught what to do with that money once you make it. I've made a ton of money as an entrepreneur, and I've literally lost every single penny of it.
Once you learn the lessons, it's also making sure you have the right software and the right mindset.
If I could go back in time and change a big part of my life, it would have been...
Hi, this is JP Newman on Investing on Purpose, and today I have with me a dear friend, internet marketing pioneer, crypto soothsayer, we're going to call you, and really just one of the deepest, dearest friends that I have, who's really been through some incredible things, life lessons that really, I just admire you, Mike. I mean, Mike Dillard. I've wanted you here for a while, Mike. You've changed my life trajectory early on. And to have you here to talk really with our audience today about not just about your background, your lifestyle, but really how you've come to and you really noticed it early on, this idea of taking your own independence, your own autonomy with your finances and with your life. When you talked about that with the Elevation Group and something early on, it was mind-blowing to me. And it was right, if I remember, it was right around the time of Occupy Wall Street.
Yeah. I went up and saw that in New York.
Did you?
Yeah.
And so I remember this Occupy Wall Street. I didn't really get why people were so frustrated. I didn't really understand it until I met you and some of the investors and members of Elevation Group. And I felt like you were really the perfect person at the perfect time to help people, empower people. And for me, Elevation Group and what you've done and where you're even going now, which I can't wait to dive into, your whole journey, is really lifting people out of the government. I call it one-dimensional wealth, which is your financial planner in a kind of a rigged system and expecting that you're actually going to make money and survive and actually have autonomy and true freedom in that system's nearly impossible. But it looks like if that's the only game you know, which most people know, it's hard to win. You, Mike, on the other hand, really seem passionate about really helping, which is, helping elevate people to the next level. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think that's always been my passion, is helping people fulfill their potential in life. That's kind of been my mission, whether it's in business or money or investing or health or whatever it may be. That's what I've pursued. I see life as a substantial gift. And so for me, it's a very personal mission of my own to fulfill my potential. And I want to help other people do the same. So that's kind of been the central theme through everything I've done.
Yeah. Incredible. So where'd that come from? That wanting to help other people, where does that come from?
Man, I don't remember. It might have been at 2 a.m. watching Tony Robbins infomercials in 1998. I used to work at, it would have been earlier than that. So I used to work at the original Romano's Macaroni Grill in Boerne, Texas, before it was a chain.
Wow.
It was just a dance hall. They converted it into a restaurant. And I did that through high school on the weekends, and I would come back, and there's, at that time, nothing to do at night. There's no iPad, there's no iPhone, there's none of that stuff. So I come home sweaty and dirty to my parents' house.
Are you a waiter?
Bussing tables.
Bussing tables.
So I get home at 1, 2 a.m. and turn on the TV because I'm not ready to just go straight to bed. And there's literally nothing to watch on at 2 a.m. on cable television except infomercials. So that's what planted the seed for me to become a business owner. All of the opportunities that are available and talked about now on the internet did not exist then. And when you looked at, a high school kid or somebody in college, what kind of opportunity is there to even become an entrepreneur at that age? It really didn't exist outside of network marketing. And so I think that's where the idea got planted, watching Tony on infomercials, Carlton Sheets, real estate, and all that. Yeah.
I totally remember all that.
Yeah. I was like, oh, wow, that's an option. I don't have to go work for somebody else for the rest of my life. So that's where the bug got planted for me. So
that's really amazing.
Yeah.
And I'd say Tony Robbins definitely was an early one for me as well. So you mentioned to me, so you're working your bussing tables, you're and all of a sudden you realize that you're going to try to you see this thing called the internet, right? And you're thinking, maybe I can bring network marketing to the internet. Why don't I do, before there's even an ebook, you decide you're going to come up with your own 60-page book. Like, what gave you that idea?
Failing at network marketing miserably for 6 years straight. So, you could become a distributor at a company like Herbalife or prepaid legal or whatever for, $50, $100. And that's doable for somebody who's broke at that time. But you have no life experience. You have no credibility. Why would anybody go into business with a 19-year-old? And I was very shy, very introverted at the time. So the primary way that you would build a network marketing business back then was to literally host meetings at your house or a hotel room.
Absolutely.
Or cold call people out of the phone book. That's what we did. And I hated every minute of that, but I hated the idea of having a job more. So I stuck with it for 6 years before I made my first buck. And I finally got to an inflection point where I said, okay, this is not what I want to do. Or I need to figure out how to do it in a way that I enjoy. Because cold calling 100 people a day and friends and family members just wasn't an option for me. So I realized that here are people, direct response marketers, selling millions of dollars worth of products in newspaper ads, magazine ads, and on infomercials without ever having to talk to anybody. So what I realized is that for those 6 years, I was trying to build a business that was not aligned with how I was wired from a personality standpoint. So take an introvert and stick them in an extrovert's business, and they're just going to be miserable and fail. Mm-hmm. And so I realized that's what I was doing. And I was like, okay, if I could reinvent how this business is built in a way that's aligned with how I'm wired, what would that look like? And it was basically, well, I want people to call me or email me saying, hey, I've gone through all of the materials. I'm ready to get started. Here's my credit card. I was like, that'd be fun. And so I spent the next 18 months learning direct response copywriting, studying all the Ogilvy and, all the best copywriters of the day, and literally would write out their sales letters by hand every night for like an hour.
Wow.
On my bathroom floor.
Wow.
And that's how I learned copywriting. And I learned how to write a sales letter, and I learned how to write an email series and ads. And it started working. I started sponsoring people like crazy, generating leads like crazy.
Where was the internet at this point? Like when you were doing this, is the internet like now becoming a thing? Is it just exploding, or is it still kind of an underground thing?
This is the 2000 boom.
Okay.
Right? 2000 to 2004.
Yeah.
So it was before social media exists. It was before iPhones existed. But Google AdWords had just started to come out around that time. Mm-hmm. So now an individual like me could actually run an ad campaign. So I taught myself how to do that, but we didn't have funnel software. We didn't have ClickFunnels or any of this stuff. So I literally had to go to Barnes & Nobles and buy HTML coding for dummies on how to code websites in Dreamweaver. So I had to learn that skill set and literally code my own landing pages and things like that.
Wow.
But it started working. I started generating leads for other people who, maybe were mentors, older than me, wealthier, successful. They did things the old school way, and I didn't have any money. So I was like, hey, why don't I generate leads for you online? I'll run a Google AdWords campaign. I'll charge you $1 a lead. And then you paid for the ad spend. And that did really well. And so I basically got paid to learn that skill set.
What was your first success in helping other people? What was the first product or a service that you're like, wow, this is actually, I may have something here.
Yeah, generating leads for other network marketers in my upline, running their ad campaign.
But when did it start to like, was there a certain campaign that you remember you're like, oh, damn, this is really working?
Not out of that specifically, outside of, I want to say 6 months into this, everybody in the industry, basically what I was doing was coined attraction marketing. And that term probably existed at that time, but nobody was applying it to the network marketing industry. And so when I took this whole concept of attracting people to you instead of chasing after them, and I put that in a training manual for my specific team at my company at that time, it got handed out to distributors and leaders in all these other companies. And they're like, "What, we want to do this for our team. Will you make a generic version of this?" And so the book was called Magnetic Sponsoring. So I made it generic, took my company info out of it, started selling it for $37 a copy on AdWords, and went from waiting tables part-time at PF Chang's to making about $50,000 a month in the next 90 days. And I literally...
So it just hit. I mean, it just hit right away.
Yeah, I would have them printed at Kinko's, buy 100, 200 copies, little spiral binding. I'd bring them home in boxes, and I'd get my orders every day, and I'd sit on my couch for 2 hours, literally addressing envelopes by hand, stuffing that, take them back to the post office. And that was my life for the next 6 months every day. But it was an awesome problem to have.
How old were you at that point? 25, 26?
Yeah, probably right around there, because that business then grew to 6 million a year, so about 500 grand a month within the next 2 years. And I was 27, 28, 29 at that time period. So
what was it like making so much money for you like that fast?
I mean, that leads us into Elevation Group and all of this other stuff. It's obviously super fun. You're in your 20s, you're single, and you're making millions of dollars a year. So I did what most guys my age would do, is I went and spent it, right? Giant 6,000 square foot house for one person in Terrytown, and a boat, and the Aston Martins and the Ferraris and all of that
car
stuff.
Collection for a while. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And then the crash of '08 happened. So I launched that book in 2005, and the crash of '08 happened. That was great for my business because people wanted to learn how to make extra money. So from '08 to '10, I just
kept going. Is that where it went from 50,000 to 500,000 during that time? Incredible.
But I realized, watching everybody's, retirement portfolio dropped by 50%. I didn't have one because I was spending my money, I wasn't investing it yet. But I saw what it did to my parents and everybody else. I was like, okay, I don't want to do that. And this was the time when gold and silver was getting really popular before the crash. So it started, that was the one investment I had, was boxes and boxes of gold and silver. This is when I was following Kiyosaki, reading Creature from Jekyll Island. And kind of all of this sovereign stuff started to come into my life in that way. And, around that time, really smart people had identified that what the US was doing with their money printer was not sustainable, and it was really unhealthy. And that kind of took on a narrative of its own that I bought into fully. And then we have Occupy Wall Street and all of that stuff. Bitcoin came out of that narrative as well in 2010. And so at that time, making a ton of money. I've been doing magnetic sponsoring for 5 years.
Now, at this point, is it just the book? Or are you doing workshops on this? Are you doing the whole thing?
It's like 3 or 4 other courses in the book. Okay. Yeah. So that was generating that 5 mil, 6 mil a year.
Incredible.
But the crash happened, and I'm like, okay, I got lucky. I didn't have a bunch of money invested, and I'm squandering the opportunity of a lifetime by just spending all of this money that I'm making. I realized I don't want to do what everybody else is doing because they just got hosed. And so the question I asked myself was, there were people in '08, the '08 crash, that made billions of dollars. Peter Thiel and, that crew, right? So
Kyle, your friend Kyle Bass.
So it's like, okay, what did they do? And that's the event that put it into my head that every crash is an opportunity. So I don't look at crashes as something to be afraid of. I look at something to look forward to. And that's something Robert's always talked about as well. But that just brought up that question for me, is how do the rich invest? How do they build wealth versus the retail side of, get a traditional financial advisor and an index fund and get feed to death and all of that. I didn't want to do that. And so that's the inspiration to start the second business, which was the Elevation Group. And I was not an expert by any means when it came to investing. All I had was more questions. So I decided to just interview people that I thought were successful and learn from them. That's when we met.
Yeah.
And launched that business, I want to say December of 2010 or 2010. And I had my audience from magnetic sponsoring, so a couple 100,000 people on an email list. Launched Elevation Group for $97 a month. And we made $3.2 million in 7 days, the first 7 days.
Wow.
So that was fun.
That's really amazing.
And that turned into an 8-figure business that next year. So,
Mike, I'd love to know the in-between, because that is right at the time. I think you met Adrian before you met me, and then we met. And I remember what you said, Mike, because I knew very little about attraction marketing at the time. And I remember we got to know each other for a bit, and I was really impressed. You didn't just say right away, like you vetted me for a while before you even let our company be part of like the real estate side of Elevation Group. But I remember you said to me, you're in my conference room at Shoal Creek, and you're like, JP, we're like a white shirt. It looks really good on camera, and there's gonna be more people watching you than you think. I think you threw out a number. I think it's like 20,000 or 30 or 40,000. You're like, you probably want to wear like a clean white shirt for that. Like, and you were very Mike about it. You were just like very, casual. I'm like, and I really didn't know anything about your world or what you did. I was just really starting the real estate business and really doing that. And when you said that, like, I wonder what I didn't really, I'm like, I was intrigued by it, but really knew nothing about what like our next journey was going to be together. Where more and more as we got to know each other, Adrian and I got to really, got the honor really of being like the cash flow real estate guys and teaching people about cap rates and cash flow and questions to ask and all that stuff. And it was so incredible. Not only was it obviously incredible because it really worked out great for Thrive. I never put a word to it until just now, by the way, that as you know, it got to the point with Elevation Group where we would open our computers on Monday and there'd be 10 new people inquiring because of Elevation Group and because of you, Mike. And I always have a gratitude for you for that. It really, like, I joke and say my real estate company is an internet startup because of you.
Yeah.
Right? Like people are sending checks, big checks are sending. I'm like, but how can you send me a check? You haven't met us. Oh no, we saw you on video on Mike's thing, and we get you. And thank God, that we took that responsibility and we're able to do great things with it. And you probably know a lot of your early Elevation people are still clients today. Awesome. But I'm always grateful for that. And to your point, before you go to the next thing, like as I get older with efficiency and probably have a little less patience than I used to have when I was younger, that idea that you're talking about of just literally like, how do people find you rather than you having to find people, especially when you really are confident that you've got a good product or a good service. Like, why should I try so hard? But the answer is, if you're not trying hard, you're probably going to fail unless you've got a good funnel to bring them in. So I've had to learn, even as a real estate guy, I've had to learn more in the last couple of years between you and Tristan and Joe Stolte. Thank God I have a good Austin crew about funnels. And it's fast and it's actually kind of fun because you almost start to gamify. Like, it becomes a game.
It is. It's a super fun game when you can, especially when you get into paid ads, when you can spend $1 and make back $5.
Yeah.
Like, that's super fun.
Super fun. And I'm just really at the beginning of a funnel. Like, the taste of what you gave us many, many years ago is really where this company is going. And that's exactly how I'm designing the company, is just to continue to go from there. The people that need to find us will find us, and that we have the right proper funnel to attract them, educate them, and treat them with the highest integrity, but through a process that really makes sense. That's not like one off here and one off here.
Yeah.
But this is because I'm older than you. I did exactly what you did with cold calls, but I had to sit and sell supermarket advertising. and it was like Glengarry Glen Ross. I was given rolls of dimes for the phone, and all day I had to sit in a phone booth.
Wow.
And I couldn't leave. Like, I would drive to like 100 miles away from my house, and I couldn't leave until I had sold 10 ads to get that supermarket. Wow. So like, I remember just sitting there burning up the phone with dimes, and I hated it. It was the hardest job in the world. And my sales manager had a Nissan 300ZX. And he said, one day, because I was 21, he goes, one day you can be like me. And I'm like, and I'm the poor schmuck in the phone booth, just like throwing dimes. And it was a great lesson. I got it done.
Yeah. It gives you skin, man. It gives you thick skin. Yeah.
I got those because I wanted to go home so bad. I was so hungry and so tired. I would get those 5 ads, and I got really good at selling those ads. Nice. So I totally know what it's like on both sides of the cold calling all the way to it. Just a beautiful funnel that works. So Mike, I want you to dig a little deeper before we go further into the Elevation Group, because in my mind, the Elevation Group became more than just a community. And this goes into like the 4-dimensional wealth of, like, we talk about communities. I feel like you created a community, but it almost felt like it was a spiritual, like a spiritual moment, because very similar to today, actually, people are so not trusting of our government, so not trusting that the system that they're in economically is rigged against them. Right?
Yes, as they should be.
Right? As they should be. I always say it's a game. Tom Wright said this to me, and I'll never forget. He's like the tax code is just a game, and people don't even know the game of the tax code. They don't know the game of like how to win because they don't even know there's rules. Like, they've never even read the rules of the game. And I feel like Elevation, you were trying to wake people up and saying, hey, this is going against you, but wake up because there's rules and there's a game here. And then you would bring in like me and Tom Wheelwright, and you'd bring in a whole host of people to literally elevate people out of that. How do you feel about that today? It seems like, it's not like Wall Street's become benevolent. How do you see that movement, like from where you took it to where we're at today, is, just generally?
It's interesting. I mean, I think it's more important than ever. Since 2008, I think the corruption's only become even more obvious, especially through, the Biden administration personally. It's like they just don't even care anymore. They just are blatant about it now.
Very blatant. It's very open.
And you see what happened with COVID. I was one of the first people to literally go speak up at rallies or online and say, don't take the thing, right? Don't get injected. Don't trust the government. They're not going to help you with this. It's not for your benefit. It's for Pfizer's benefit and Bill Gates's benefit. And they're not doing this to be kind to you. And they're going to screw you over with this. And so I got banned on Instagram for a while for that and was very vocal about it. But that to me was the biggest betrayal, way more than abusing the financial system of '08, because that's all that was at that time. But this was now very personal and coming after families and kids and, your grandmother, literally. But a lot of people didn't believe me, or the people, the group of us that was speaking out about it, conspiracy theorists, all this other stuff. And, lo and behold, ended up being right. I read an article yesterday. I don't know if it was MIT, but some very reputable institutions went in and did a study on the people who got one specific company's injection. I'm trying not to use any keywords here. Since that date, it's killed 450,000 Americans that they've correlated to that.
Love to see that, by the way.
Just one company out of the three major ones, right? Yeah. And so it's the same thing for me. I've never trusted the government, because most people who end up in power outside of like Ron Paul and Rand, frankly, are the only honest politicians I've ever known, because they've been calling this out since day one with the Fed. They're narcissistic psychopaths, most of them, because that's the personality it takes to get to that point of power. You have to be willing to sell your soul to get to that position. In most cases, not all. I'll put Trump in the narcissist category for sure, but I believe he's doing it for the right reasons as far as helping the little guy goes.
Yeah.
He's an entrepreneur at heart. He just wants the country to be.
But do you think the little guy's doing better or worse? I know owning apartments and kind of just seeing a lot of like the working class. I don't really feel like the working class. And by the way, this isn't political. This goes beyond a presidential thing. I think we've had a trend in America for a long time, beyond politics, of just, I don't see the working class in a better position over the last 20 years.
No, and I guess the theme of it here is, I think if you continue to trust the government and Wall Street, you're going to continue to get abused by them. You are their source of food and revenue, they're not there to build you up. So, yeah.
I have a question too, Mike, which was like, and I've seen it, like, it felt like for a while, it almost, like I said, it felt like a spiritual movement, and it really felt like people coming together, not only in the community, but you put together some of the top people in the world. And I learned a lot. I mean, I can tell you that the way I do my finances now came a lot of things, Tom Lloyd's still my CPA, all these, I have as I just said off camera, I've got a pretty stout, life insurance strategy that I learned at the Elevation Group. So like these things, all these years later, have proven the test of time. Obviously, cash flow real estate's proven. And I know that one of your people that you trusted in your group broke the trust with you. And I find that, I deal with money all the time. And so it's really a strange thing, because especially when you have a movement like that, you tend to want to trust people. You let them into your sacred circle. And occasion, and the reason why I'm bringing this up is because even now with me, I feel like most of the people in my community are just amazing, but I feel like I still have to always kind of watch out for that person that seems to be perfect, but isn't. Because money is an interesting concept energetically with people. You had built like the perfect empire, and one guy really betrayed you. And I've had that happen to me in business.
Yeah. So the best word that I think describes it was capturing a zeitgeist moment. Mm-hmm. Like a zeitgeist was happening after the crash of '08. The majority of the country, the 95% of people got really hurt by that, but they didn't have a better solution. Wall Street's solution was, we'll just give us more money. And that didn't resonate with people. And so I just pointed that out, saying, hey, if they're telling you just give them more money after they just screwed you over and didn't take care of you to begin with, why would you do that? It's because you don't have knowledge of a better option or a solution. So let's figure that out.
Yeah.
Let's figure that out together. I'm going to figure that out. If you want to come with me, join the group. And that's literally what was the whole pitch.
It really was.
So yeah, I mean, it took off in a massive way, and it resonated with that extensive level of pain that most of the society was going through, and they needed an option. And I created that for myself first and foremost, and then for anybody else who wanted to join us. And And it took off in a really big way. And it's really interesting. When I interviewed Tony Robbins on my podcast years ago,
That's why it was an amazing podcast. I'll never forget when I watched that one.
I mean, the thing that blew my mind away is he had joined the Elevation Group, and that was part of the inspiration for his book, which was the same concept.
It was.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So that was super. That was.
You know, he just came out with the second book in the last 6 months, which is all about how alternative investments outperform the traditional Wall Street. Yeah. Great book, by the way, too. If you guys haven't read it, do you remember the name of the book offhand? I can pull it.
Not off the top of my head. I've still got mold brain.
Yeah. But, no worries. I forgot too. I read it. It was actually great. And I actually went to the, Kaz is his partner on this. And I went to they're now managing 10 trillion because when Tony Robbins is in, the world is in. The power of Tony.
Yeah. And then you're right. One of the guys, the concept of the business model was I'm going to interview somebody new every month, and we do a video interview with them. And 18 months in, we interviewed the first guy that we brought in the Forex industry, which frankly, when you're 18 lessons into finance and investing, there's not much left to talk about.
Right.
Really isn't.
I agree.
So I'm kind of scrambling, trying to serve our customer base now. And I'm like, well, we haven't talked about this yet. And a friend recommended this guy to me. I called him, sure, whatever, and had him on the show. And I invested money with him, and our group invested a massive amount of money with him. And he ended up being a con man. Yeah. And, within a week of that coming out, I'm at the W in Austin, sitting in front of the FBI and the CFTC and the SEC and giving a statement. And that was tough, because still being an introvert and now being a very public face where anywhere I would go, I'd get recognized from all the ads that we were running and the people that were in the community. To have somebody else take advantage of my goodwill and reputation and level of trust I had with my audience to abuse that and then steal from them was unbelievably horrific. And then to have my integrity and honesty questioned in a very public way, frankly, put me into a depression for 3 years. The business, obviously, we lost 90% of our revenue within 6 months. Legal bills went up to $50,000 a month. And I spent the next 3 years doing whatever I could to put those guys behind bars, which they eventually happened, found guilty and all of that stuff. I will say that the part that made it manageable for us is that all of those agencies came through and literally went through every email and laptop hard drive that we had and saw that we were doing things the right way, never asked us to stop doing business, never froze our merchant account, never froze our bank accounts. They're like, okay, you guys are good. And you got screwed. And for me, at the end of the day, with the experience that I have now, I was around 30 at that point, 31. I was just freaking naive because coming from the network marketing industry and internet marketing industry, it's all about collaboration. Hey, I'll promote your product. Cool. You want to promote my product? Or hey, you want to help each other and we'll both, excel together. That was my experience of the world coming out of college. Like, I didn't have any bad guys in my life. I didn't know they existed. And my logic was, why would you do that? Because you're going to get found out.
I know.
It's the internet age. Like, you can't screw anybody over, let alone 50,000 people, and have them not find out about it. Right. So I didn't think anybody would be that dumb.
Yeah, I get it.
And I was wrong. So.
I just 2 weeks ago, Mike, I found out that one of my investments that I put quite a bit of money in, it was fraud. Bank fraud, $154 million bank fraud.
Wow.
And the guy who brought me into it's someone that I really trust. And we had a hard conversation a couple of weeks ago about it, because you want to believe that everything is just good and that person means well. But in the meanwhile, you've just lost, in this case, they lost about $81 million of people's money, total wipeout. Yeah. And my investment, thank God, some people put in their life savings. Yeah. I never put my life savings in anything.
Same.
Yeah.
And during this experience, like, it devastated people.
And so it's interesting because, Mike, you and I, we're good friends, and you and I both share the same heart of really like looking at the best in people. And money is just a funny subject, because even now, like, I always tell Adrian, like, vet people carefully. It's not just on the deals we're doing. It's like, even investors, like I always say to Adrian, be careful who you bring in as an investor. Like, you don't want the wrong energy. Mm-hmm. The ones that tend to be the most complicated don't have the largest amount with you.
Yeah.
They're just like, they could be in their own fear about money. They could be whatever their twist is. And then as you know, Mike, as you get more successful, more people gravitate towards you, and you're not sure if their objective is they generally like you or if they generally like being around the persona of you or the success of you kind of thing. And I try it. I don't want to get like, I don't want to be paralyzed by that. I just want to be JP just the way you're just Mike. And, I want to be that same person, but I'm keenly aware of it at my age now and having just a long career that I'm as friendly as can be. And there is a filter on at all times. And it's just not, it's in the background now because I've dealt with so many people, but there is a little bit of a bullshit meter that I look to.
Yep. 100%.
I ask a lot of questions.
Go do some medicine journeys together and see what comes up.
Exactly. Exactly.
Sure.
So Mike, like fast forward now, we talk about a lot of what you're talking about. I talk about in the concept of 4-dimensional wealth, which is like Wall Street is 1-dimensional wealth. Just generally, like when we talk about Wall Street, it's 1 dimensions. And you and I both know the narrative, right? Save up money, wait to it's a total scarcity mentality. Get a diversified portfolio of stocks, mostly stocks and some other things. Keep squirreling it away. By the time you're 70 or 80, hopefully you'll have enough money for you and your family before you die.
While they're debasing your savings in the meantime.
While you're trying to earn 8 and inflation's 7 to 12. So it's not really, it's a losing game, and most people don't even understand it's a losing. Most people don't even understand that your money is being, generally, especially in most of these countries like the US, your money's being debased annually at a rate that, if you're earning 6%, you probably lost 3%.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep.
It's hard for people to conceive that. So when eggs are going up, there's a reason why eggs are going up. It's not because the chickens are more expensive. It's the money's worth less. I don't know if you guys got that or not, but that's a real important one to figure out. So in the world, Mike, of 4-dimensional wealth, we really look at purpose wealth, time wealth, our health wealth, and our community wealth, our people wealth, who we're with, as the most important things. And then coming up with strategic, financial frameworks that really support you in the 4 dimensions. Fast forward, I know you've really dived into crypto. I know you continue with the message of you've had it different ways, but really helping people become autonomous, independent. But I know for you, crypto's become a big piece. And I've actually come to you for crypto advice a lot. I still do. You've made me quite a bit of money. I think I'm happily doing well because of a dinner party at your house where you just took a little time with me and showed me how to trade.
Yeah, I remember that.
About 4 or 5 years ago. What does crypto mean to you now? What does it mean, not just financially as an investment thesis, but what does it mean in terms of our conversation about really not playing 1-dimensional wealth?
Yeah, well, I mean, Bitcoin is we talk about energetics, right? Bitcoin is the equivalent separation for the first time in history of money from state. It's the only money that has ever been, let's just, use the term immaculately concepted, out of nowhere, without a founder, without a king, without a decree, without a government. It literally got invented out of the ether by a group of anonymous people who may or may not still be alive. And it became its own entity, separate from any source of control or power for the first time ever in human history. It's the only one and only time this has ever happened. And so now we have,
because the technology finally exists to do this.
And Bitcoin, some people say, oh, it's a CIA, whatever. No, if you look at the timeline of Bitcoin, and you can ask AI about the timeline of it, it was a 20 to 30 year development period, from digital gold to all of these other projects and developers who they'd figure out one piece, and the next group 10 years later would figure out the next piece. And then, Satoshi and that group finally put it all together and did it in a way that has now survived, 15-ish years, and has had more hacking power and government resources thrown at it to try and destroy it than any other entity on the planet in history. And they've never been able to do it because it was designed so well. And so that, to me, is, from a spiritual, energetic perspective, it changes everything, because now we, the people, have an opportunity to truly have independent wealth that cannot be confiscated, cannot be controlled, cannot be debased. They can't corrupt it. They can't change the rules. So this is new, and I think that's why it's gone from a penny, fractions of a penny, to $100,000 plus a Bitcoin now, and it will eventually go to 1 million and then 10 million.
Yeah, it makes sense. It's funny as you're talking about it, it makes me think, there's a lot of geopolitical tension in the world, and who's going to win? Is this, is it Russia versus China versus the US? Are we a bunch of but it's actually kind of cool when you think about Bitcoin, the way you're describing it. It's we're all like, at least it's a very Western liberal thing to think about individual freedom. And is our individual freedoms going away or not? And what's happening all over the world? And what I hear you say is like, well, actually, like one of the biggest revolutions of individual financial freedom is within crypto, the structure of crypto.
Look at, I mean, nature and God fascinate me. If you look at things in the form of equal and opposite reaction, over the time that we've been heading into a global control grid, for lack of a better term, where there's cameras on every street, everything you do online is being tracked. Your Wi-Fi router listens to you. Like, for lack of a better term, we live in a prison planet now. Like, you only have the illusion of freedom in any given country you are in.
Right. So you're an animal in a cage. You just don't know it.
You'll know at the moment that your passport doesn't get approved at the airport, and you can't leave the country. Now all of a sudden you're aware of the cage that you're in, and so you have that trend that's been happening over the last 10 to 15 years. And on the opposite side of that, equal and opposite reaction, you have the literal conception of independent money that's private, that can't be controlled, where you and I can send each other transactions without a third party interfering with us, and we can do it billions of dollars at a time. If I've got my seed phrase in my head and I've got $100 million in there, no one can take that from me. And so it's pretty cool to see and we've seen it now on the political side. It swung way in one direction and the equal and opposite direction in the other direction now. So there's a balance that's always happening. And Bitcoin is that balance for the financial abuse that's been happening since we went off the gold standard.
And Mike, I think you and I both agree, like right now, that we're probably going into another market correction. I definitely feel it in commercial real estate. You can feel, I was mentioning to you in the last 6 months, there's a definite change. I'm noticing it across all my investments. I'm noticing it in commercial real estate. Commercial real estate is still pricing itself down. I call it, this is price discovery still, which is why I haven't bought anything in 3 years. Although I actually found my first deal, it's 40% off that I like. And it's like, and it came from a bank, and it just happened in the last few weeks. So that's the beginning of a cycle where the bank's calling me. It's 40% down. I can get back, Mike, to the early days where I can get my investors at the new price, 7 to 8% cash flow again, 18 IRR. Like, I'm back in that.
Nice.
Just touching it again. So it's exciting. I know there's a lot to come. I think you and I both agree there's going to be some more turmoil ahead of us. If you're in the audience and you wanted to give some people advice, like how, like you said, turmoil can be an opportunity. Don't get frightened. Don't put your head in the sand. What would you do kind of if you assume that there's going to be some more market turmoil ahead of us?
If it's okay, I want to backtrack to a more macro viewpoint of this, because I've made a ton of money as an entrepreneur and I've literally lost every single penny of it. And that had to do with going through a brain injury like you, through toxic mold, and physically not being able to fall asleep for 3 years or work or function for 3 years straight. At that point, I had to liquidate what I had to pay my bills and medical stuff and, all of that. So that was just a few years ago. What that woke me up to was the fact that making money and keeping money are two very different things. And most entrepreneurs, all we're ever taught is how to make money, because that's where our focus is. When you're broke and waiting tables, you only have one goal, and that's to go make more money. But you're not taught what to do with that money once you make it. And for most entrepreneurs, not all, because I don't put you in this category, you're an entrepreneur, but you don't have this mindset. But I'm going to say 9 out of 10 of us have a high risk tendency where we are okay with taking high risks. We're wired for doing that, which is why we become entrepreneurs, and when most people would not be willing to do what we end up putting on the line in order to build a business. But that becomes a part of your nature. It's, usually high adrenaline, high risk taking. My life growing up was professional mountain bike racing, car racing, Baja 1000, high adrenaline stuff. And so when you apply that neurochemistry to the money that you then make, well, what do you do with it? You naturally start to look for high risk things to put it in, like a Bitcoin. And that turned out pretty well, but some of the others didn't. A lot of the others didn't. And that creates something I call the make it, spend it, risk it cycle, where you make a bunch of money and you either spend it or you risk it. As an entrepreneur, that's your neurochemistry. And at the end of the day, what I've realized, looking back, going through the healing process I had to go through, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, that at the end of the day was just a trauma response. It was a response to being bullied at a very young age for a very long time, and used to having cortisol streaming through my blood 24/7. And when you don't have that and you're in a calm state where you're financially secure, then it's actually very uncomfortable. And you'll go do something to get that cortisol back. You'll go risk it on crypto or a new startup or whatever it may be. And before you know it, you're back in that cycle. And that's because your subconscious brain and your neurochemical addiction that your body has doesn't care about your 401k and your retirement plan. It just wants that neurochemistry in your body now. Mm-hmm. And so for me,
is pretty much gambling.
It is, just in a form that you logically justify.
Right.
Like
it's an investing. It's not gambling, but it's actually gambling. Whether if you don't really understand your risk and reward, which most people don't, and it's hard. It's hard even for me, and I consider myself quite sophisticated to always measure risk and reward. If you're reading someone else's deck, and especially if it's institutional, if it's a large thing, it's like, how am I really weighing? I was asked this week to get involved with something. And I'm using GPT more and more to help me with the risk. Because I just say to GPT, forget about like, what are the 10 things like you would say would be the highest risk of this deck? And that's a really great tip, by the way. If you're not doing that, guys, at anything you're reading, at least that wakes me up to like, what are like, there's always a couple things that I didn't think about.
Sure. Yeah. Reviewing contracts, all of that.
Yeah.
So if I could go back in time and change a big part of my life, it would have been a couple of things. But one, if you don't have a plan for your money, it will end up in the hands of somebody else who does. And Ferrari has plans, Rolex has plans, Porsche has plans, Apple has plans. Not only do they have plans for your money, they have the most talented, well-paid people on the planet employed to extract that money from your pocket and put it in theirs. And if you take the kind of technology that's available today from retargeting and social media, your brain doesn't stand a chance against these technologies.
Yeah.
And so if I could start over, make a plan for my money, because one of the curses of being able to make a lot of money and acquiring that skill set, and it comes really easy, is that, I can afford to lose 300 grand. I'll go make more next month.
Right.
And that works great until it doesn't, until you wake up one day, have a click in your head and can't function anymore.
Right.
So for me, it was coming to an understanding that was a part of my neurochemistry and becoming aware of that. Can't change something until you become aware of it. Then working with the right people, it could be a financial advisor or whomever, to actually take the money that I'm making and then put it into safe, conservative investments. Because I've learned going through this that the role of owning a business is to do one thing. It's to generate cash flow that you then go use to buy assets. Mm-hmm. It's not to make money. That's not the goal of your business, to make money, pay for your lifestyle, buy your car, pay for your house. The goal of the business is to make money that you then use to then go acquire assets, and then those assets pay for your house and your car, which is the life you have, right?
So we talk about, that's the active relationship of active income, which is what you earn through your business, and then your passive income is what you earn through your investments that you pursue. I
mean, I had the opportunity, if I had been smart about it and had the experience and the foresight, to acquire $5 to $10 million in cash flow real estate throughout, that part of my career. And when the brain injury happened, I could have easily been making $100 grand a month just in passive income and gotten to solely focus on that recovery. Instead, I had to liquidate what I had and then go to try and continue to pay the bills while going through the most excruciating, difficult years of my life, at the same time. And so that was a very humbling, valuable lesson that I want to try and share with as many people as I can, especially because what we're about to go through, I think in the next year, we're going to have a big end to this bubble. You mentioned there's the haves and the have-nots basically right now. And I think if you own assets, you're going to be okay, because the response to any market crash is going to be to print more money, add more liquidity into it. It'll be a repeat of 2008 or 2020, probably closer to 2020. And the fact that it won't be a 3-year trough, it'll be maybe a 1-year trough, because we're smart enough now. We watch what they do. Then as soon as they lower interest rates to 0% and then turn on the money printer, which is their last option, that's usually when I've looked through all the previous crashes. The crashes have bottomed when interest rates have bottomed. So 0.25%, 0%, that marks the bottom. And then they turn on the money printer, and that starts to put liquidity in the markets. The markets go up, and we're all now wise to this. So I made millions of dollars after 2020 because of that. And we're waiting for it. And so if you know what to look for and you have assets, cool, go ahead and play your game. I know how to beat you now at this. But the people who don't have assets are going to be crushed because it's going to cause inflation again. And if they don't have assets to keep up with that and rise with the tide, then they're just going to drown in the higher costs.
And Mike, what you're talking about, just for the audience, you're talking about hard assets. Assets, because assets tied to paper are going to deflate with the paper. Assets like Bitcoin, I guess you consider, I know it's a soft asset, but it's still a hard, I guess you'd consider, well, it's not, is that a soft asset or a hard asset? How would you look at crypto?
I mean, honestly, all of them, JP, real estate, gold, Bitcoin, not crypto, Bitcoin, and in stocks. I saw a fascinating chart today. If you look at Berkshire Hathaway's entire run for the last 30, 40 years, now over the last year with what gold has done, it's an exact mirror. All gold has done is kept up with inflation and money printing. All Berkshire Hathaway has done is kept up with inflation and money printing. And the same thing goes with any of the other stock markets. If you take the S&P 500 or whatever you want and you just back out the inflation, it hasn't gone up in value at all.
Yeah. Oh, I see what you're saying. So the 8 or 10% that these indexes are doing, you're saying is just about.
Well, they'll keep up. They'll counter it. So they'll keep you at
zero.
They'll keep you from going down, right? So if you have,
but they're not necessarily boosting your net worth may be going up in numbers, but it's kind of a false thing because your point is if there's this inflation, your dollars are less dollars, so you may feel comfortable. But I just notice when I go out now, like everything is just expensive. Like I don't drink anymore, and it's $200 to go out.
Look at real estate here. If you didn't buy a house by 2021, it doubled. It
absolutely doubled.
Yeah.
So your thing is like keep your assets, earn them. The mindset I heard you say, Mike, is take your income that you're earning and think of that and putting that into assets, and then having the assets pay for your life. So so that your cash flow that supports what I call your current lifestyle, hopefully will get you through fulfilling or to your abundant lifestyle, is being generated through really your passive income. Your active income is what's keeps there. Your active income is there to keep growing your passive income. So ultimately, winning the game, as you and I would say, winning the financial game is simply when your cash flow equals the lifestyle that you want to have. That to me, that supports you in all the important dimensions of your life, the 4 dimensions.
It's really important that people understand that we're in an exponential moment right now in many different categories. Exponential increase in money supply, exponential increase in technology. But I want to encourage you, if you're like under the age of 40 and not independently wealthy yet, skip the Ferrari stage, like skip the Rolex stage and the AP stage and all of that. Because the opportunity cost of the money that you're putting into that right now over the next 5 years is going to be 10x what it would be otherwise versus when I went through it. And it's hard for me to say because I went through that stage, and I get it when you're making $1 million a year and you want to go get the shit that's on your dream board. But the cost of doing that now is going to be massively out of proportion compared to when I went through it, because the cost of not putting that 200 grand into Bitcoin today over the next 10 years is 20x penalty, right? So I'm watching people go out and buy these watches, and that's kind of in the hustle entrepreneur space right now. And they're like, oh, it's not going to go down in value, or it went up in value during 2020. So they feel justified in doing that. But the opportunity cost that you're leaving on the table by buying that stuff instead of like putting a very smart plan in place for that money, whether it's just in Bitcoin or Tesla. For me, the 2 asset classes that you have to be in right now are Bitcoin and AI, because that's going to dominate the future. And out of all the AI stocks that that exist in the world, Tesla is at the top of my list because they're vertically integrated in basically every single silo. And they're only one of the only companies out there that are in multiple silos. So Tesla is in the physical robotic game with the cars and the Optimus bots. They're getting into the chips game. They're in the AI training and farmhouse game. They've now got Grok, so they're on the LLM software side. They've got X, which is the social media platform side. So they have more data than most of the other companies outside of Facebook and Google. And they're on the energy side with Tesla battery and solar, which is growing like crazy. And there is no other company in the world that is better than Tesla at manufacturing. Period. It's like they're an alien entity that Elon came down and invented technology that nobody else can compete
I heard
with.
him say, he's getting to the point where he can start producing cars in like minutes, like off the delivery line. They're getting to that point where like,
It's going to be unbelievable. And so if you don't own that technology is going to replace you in the next 5 to 10 years. And your only hope, and this, I'm including myself in that category, your only hope to not end up a victim of these changes that are happening right now faster than people can perceive is that you have to own those assets. If there's going to be 50 million Optimus bots running around here in the next 12 years, I want to own a part of that fleet, if you will. And so put the money in Tesla stock and in Bitcoin, which hedges you against all of the other financial disruptions that are going to come as a result of what AI does. Stimulus, money printing to offset the crashes and the deflation that this is going to cause. The universal basic income that's going to have to come as a result of this. And so Bitcoin hedges against that. Owning Tesla hedges against the actual disruption itself. For me, that's what I'm doing.
yeah.
And
I can tell you, as a real estate guy, I'm heavily in real estate, but I actually agree with you. I'm in Bitcoin, as you know. I probably could put a little more. I actually don't have a lot of exposure to AI. I should probably do more because I'm with you. I think what you're saying makes sense. And on the most basic level, if that's all overwhelming, I'd start with your house. And if you have your money, get to a rental house, because just having money in like is a really it's more boring. It may not have the exponential growth, but it's just. Back to your point about risk and reward, just start with some basics.
JP, that's such a good point. If you're logical and you do the math, it's hard to justify buying a house and getting a mortgage where you're like, well, the opportunity cost of that is this. Yeah. If I can get a mortgage for 4% and I can make 20% a year on Bitcoin amortized over whatever, then it makes no logical sense to get a mortgage. So I never did until I couldn't work anymore. And then security was all that mattered. And so now, I've got the investments that I have, and we have a house that's 80% paid off for.
That's how I sleep at night. I mean, that took a long time to pay off my house, but that is winning. But when people say, I don't get why you're paying off your house. When money was 2%, they're like, I don't get you, JP. Like, you're a financial guy. You could borrow money at 2%. Why would you keep all that money in your house? And the answer is, so I can sleep at night.
Cars are paid for in cash.
Yeah.
Bills are lower than they've ever been, like took our lifestyle down way, significantly lower than it's ever been. And now if I could go back and do that over again, I'm like, that's the first thing that I would do, especially if I was a young entrepreneur, because
I'm a big believer.
You get to create when you're in a secure place from a completely different energy at that point. It's not month to month. How am I going to pay my bills? Oh, I got to create a product and launch that or whatever. And then you compromise your long-term vision for short-term financial needs. I would 100% start there. Put, 20% aside. Let's just say you've got $100 to invest every week or whatever, $1,000. 20% of that automatically goes to your mortgage. 10% goes to gold. The rest of your investable cash, you go do whatever. So you're not just doing one or the other, you're doing both. But make it a point, and don't get a 30-year mortgage and pay it off in 30 years. No, make it paid off in 3 to 5.
Right. But get the 30. Take advantage of the 30 because it's there for you. Every time I had a real estate deal, when I was like, I would throw money at my mortgage. The greatest thing about a mortgage is you can take a 30-year mortgage, and then when you've got a little extra money, just keep paying it down. And there's no penalty for paying it down. And you can always refinance. To me, it's like what we have in America here is give me all the time in the world, and then I'm going to play the system the other way and try to pay it down in 5 or pay it down. And that's exactly what I did every time there was a little extra. I just kept throwing money at it until one day I didn't have a mortgage.
Yeah.
In states like Texas, it's particularly great because your house is yours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, after all of these decades of learning lessons, money comes down to 3 things for me. Invest consistently in real assets over a long period of time.
I like that.
That's like, if you only do those 3 things, you will end up wealthier than you can possibly imagine over the next 30 or 40 years. Yeah. You'll never have to worry about money, but it's doing that, investing consistently in real assets over a long period of time is all that's required. And for me to do that, and for most entrepreneurs to do that, you have to set up an automated system to make that happen, because as an entrepreneur, the amount of money I make every day changes. I'll make 0 a lot of days, and I'll make tens of thousands other days. And so that makes it very hard to invest consistently when you're in those swings. And when money comes in, you're like, oh, I deserve a reward. I've been busting my ass for 3 months. I'm going to go buy whatever. So for me, I think the next big piece that has been the most beneficial to us is automating our money. So we use software where every dollar that comes in gets divided by percentages to 7 different accounts. And I don't have to think about it anymore. 30% of every dollar we make gets invested. 4% goes to a fun account where I get to blow that on whatever I want. So if I want a watch, I go buy a watch. I just wait till the money goes up. 5% goes to a family travel account. So we're always making sure that we're saving up and have money to go take family trips and do the stuff that actually matters in life. And then the rest goes to different obligations and taxes and bills. So 20% of every dollar goes to a tax account. So you never get behind on your taxes. And that all happens without any.
Is that a software you can talk about? Just that's a really cool thing.
Yeah, it's called Sequence, sequence.io, get Sequence. And it's $15 a month. And it's totally revolutionized our life because we never have to think about money anymore. If you're married, you don't have any stressful discussions about money anymore.
That's great. My wife always has a new project. I can just say, honey, check your bucket. You don't need to ask me what's in your bucket.
It's the Dave Ramsey envelope system that is been automated. And now I have my stock investment account. That money gets sent automatically into my mega backdoor Roth IRA. And then once it hits that account, it gets automatically averages and buy shares into Tesla and IBIT for Bitcoin. Yeah.
Amazing. Mike, one thing we're going to wrap up here, but I could just sit here because I love this stuff. You know me. And I also think it's really valuable. My passion at this point, Mike, is to really help people go from scarcity and fear to clarity and abundance. And then ultimately, because to your point, once you actually have your abundance and you feel safe, then you can go to servant leadership and impact, which, is my jam.
Yep.
But you can't really be a great servant leader. You can't really talk about impact if you're worried about next month's rent.
Right.
Very, very hard. You can volunteer some time, but it's the wrong energy. So I'm really right on, I'm tracking you and I'm definitely going to share this. It really feels like I may be doing a book soon and it might be right in my book because I just feel like what you're saying is right on. I think you and I think we always share that respect. It's like we see money that way. And we also see our love for our family and protecting our families. Because what's the end game really? It's to have the best time you can with your family. And for me, my serotonin drips when I can create amazing experiences and let my family know they're safe. I've got you. And we can have these amazing experiences together. That's actually winning. That's one of my biggest wins.
And that's what I love about you, man, because you've known that as long as I've known you, 15, 20 years now.
Yeah.
And I'm always like, what would JP do? And I'm like the manic ADD Red Bull drinking extreme sports entrepreneur who just went hell and high water in everything that I went into. And it was a roller coaster. And now it's only been the last 3 or 4 years where I've figured out, oh, that's really smart what he's doing. And I should probably do the same thing now. So
I'll swap with you. Just keep giving me crypto tips and I'll just tell you what I'm doing in my little boring world, but it feels good. So Mike, now that you are in the process of healing, obviously more energy, it's just great to even have just this conversation. It's just awesome. I miss our friendship. I miss that you've been able to like jam out like this. What's next for you? What are you doing now?
I've only really been able to get back to work, I want to say, in a consistent daily basis in the last 6 months. Mm-hmm. So it's getting back to right now my roots, which is teaching entrepreneurs how to build a large audience, teaching them how to sell more of their product and service, which is, what I've done really well for the last 20 years. And now providing the kind of financial education that I've learned going through what I've gone through the last 5. How do you systematize your wealth and all of that stuff is really at the core of what we're doing. But from a legacy standpoint, it's really interesting. I'm 47 now. Our kids are going to start driving next year. And our parents are coming into their tail end, of their life. Yeah. On, Michelle's and mine. And now the primary driver for me from a financial standpoint isn't to go, have external things that I want to do. It's having the financial abundance to be able to take care of them when hard stuff happens. Like my brother's a teacher. He's not super wealthy. He's incredible at what he does. And he's in his mid-40s. If something happens to him and, my parents are gone, I'm all that's left family-wise. I want to be able to support him in whatever he needs. Same goes for Michelle's family. And so that's the primary driver for me, is to get that taken care of. And then after that, the next chapter will be community, wider world, whatever I can do in that regard, charity stuff again.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Sounds great. It's cool, Mike. First, I'm just honored that I've been able to be on this journey with you. I learned a lot about you today. I didn't really know the very beginnings. That was super fun. I think I knew from like Elevation on. I didn't really know. Everyone was just like, you were just like the celebrity back then. Like, Mike's this, internet marketer. And you really weren't really, like, you and Mike Geary, who I just recently interviewed, like you guys really were the pioneers. So it's super fun to talk about it. But what I feel, this is just an observation, is that through your journey, and certainly health can do this to you, because health is everything. Without health, it's pretty hard to do anything else, right? When you're not sleeping, when you're going through that stuff. But I feel like your heart has always been there. That's always been part of who you are. But and you've always been humble. Like, you've always been like a humble, it's not an introvert. It's actually a humbleness about you, about your greatness and your power. But I even feel the depth of your growth. Like, I can feel like when you talk about your legacy and your family and really being there for the world, it's like, I think when you've gone through a health journey crisis and you start to come out of it and you're like, well, that was really shitty. That really sucked.
Yeah.
What am I going to do with my days? How can I make the most out of my days? And I've got these people that I love all around me. I've got this incredible community that's always there to support me. Not always. You find out during those downturns who your real friends are, and who are your social friends who liked hanging out with Mike Dillard versus like who's really there for you, right? And I feel your depth. I feel the depth of like what you're about. And Mike, for me, knowing who you are, it's like the world is your oyster. It's just, part of it's going to be like just what's important to you. Money always seems to dance with you. And I think with like the knowledge that you have now, you'll take that money and just do amazing things with it.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. I think the beatings will continue until the lesson is learned. So.
I think the lesson's been learned. Just talking to you, I feel like the lessons have been learned.
It has been, but it took a few beatings over the course of a couple of decades to finally learn them. So that's why I'm happy to share what I've gone through to help people not go through and repeat, the lessons I had to.
There's one more piece that I've learned, and even for myself, and I think you and I, when we talk about the space of going inward spiritually deeply, is your money story. We all have money stories. And I actually start my 2-day workshop this way. We all were ingrained at a young age with what was our money story. And it's usually like with my grandfather, it was money doesn't grow on trees. Mm-hmm. And so I was like, I eat all the food on my plate, because that's what I learned as a kid. Like, I'm not going to be hungry at a restaurant. I'm still like eating the food on my plate. And my point is, like, once you learn the lessons, it's also making sure you have the right software and the right mindset, right? So making sure that if there are old money stories in there, that we're bringing up more powerful money stories. Like, for me, the more I make now, the more I can give. And that actually drives me to make more. I'm like, ooh, what would a family office philanthropy be like run by my 2 kids? Like, that's like super sexy for me. So I think it's like you get to ask these questions when you start to ask better questions around your money story.
100%. And there's a difference between knowing something and inhabiting something. Right. That's
absolutely.
Yeah.
It takes a while.
I knew all this stuff for decades. I didn't follow it, but I knew it, So yeah, well, thank you, brother. You were at the top of the list on the people who were there for me during that period. So I appreciate that greatly, and I'll never forget it. And I've been able to pass on, the support you gave me to a good friend of mine who's been going through stage 4 cancer and the past few years. And so yeah, super grateful for your friendship, brother.
Appreciate me too.
You. Yeah.
Thank you. What a journey.
Yeah.
To be continued.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mike. I appreciate you so much. What'd you say? Likely what?
Hopefully for another couple decades at least. Yeah.
Peter Diamandis says if we live another 5 or 10 years, we're gonna get an extra 20.
So you're gonna open a loop. This is gonna have to be a whole nother podcast.
Sorry.
Well, this will have to be. This is up to you. You cut me off anytime, because this could be a whole other podcast on the health stuff.
Yeah. Well, let's just let the cameras roll. Alex, can we keep rolling? Yeah. You can decide. Go ahead. Go for it.
All right. So you and I have both gone very deep down the spiritual psychedelic rabbit hole the past 5 years, healing trauma from ourselves and learning about God, like all this incredible stuff. I think it's really fascinating with guys like Brian Johnson, the health longevity guy on social media, Blueprint and all of that stuff, who wants to live forever. And knowing what I know now about God and what comes after and what I've experienced firsthand, that would be the last thing that you would want to do.
Yeah,
is to hang around here as long as you can. So if we're having fun and able-bodied, cool, let the ride continue. But would I want to stay here forever? Absolutely not.
I think that's when we talk about the difference between lifespan and health span.
Yes.
I'm really interested. And you're the one, by the way, again, Mike, another credit to you. I'm still with Dr. Dan. All these years later, this is like, I'm 6 years in, I think, this had him on a podcast.
Nice.
And I signed up right away. Like, I heard you. You're like, he's an important person. And I have to say that when you have energy and you're healthy and you can still be the creator, once you've kind of figured out your 4 dimensions, you figured out your wealth, then you really are kind of a continual manifester and creator. It's like being the artist, and it's super fun.
Yeah.
I mean, it might get boring, but right now, at least at this stage, it's really, it's exciting. Like even this moment with you, Mike, it's like there's this sense of creativity and curiosity. And you might get to the point if you've lived to 120, you're just like, I think I've asked all the questions.
Well,
maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, what's fascinating to me too, JP, is that we're the first generation where this in history, where this was possible. Yeah. So the fact that you and I get to like jam and explore different aspects of life for shits and giggles, the fact that we have the time and the ability to do that has never been present before, ever, for an average common person that wasn't royalty.
Yeah.
Right? The ability to take the time to ponder the meaning of life and go serve and pursue charitable work. And that was reserved for royalty.
Right.
And our generation with the internet, it's given us the ability to compound our energy and our efforts in a way that has never been possible before. So I just count us as incredibly lucky to have the opportunity to even have talks like this and a show like this. And because nobody's ever had this opportunity before, which is just awesome.
I see it. And the last piece of it will be, because I'm really with you on this health span versus lifespan, understanding the difference of like quality of life. I wouldn't want to, I've had a lot of people tell me they would want to live forever, and I'm with you. I don't know. The part that I don't understand yet, and I think we're going to figure it out together in the next 5 to 10 years. I was at the TED conference 3 weeks ago in Vancouver. So I'm hearing all the AI updates, and all the people are there. And I don't know. It's like, now I know what this life cycle is like. I guess 100 years ago when you lived to 46 on an average age, I don't know if you can imagine, but the question I have is like, especially if AI really, which I think I agree with you, if AI is going to come in and GDP becomes unlimited and work becomes a lot less necessary. So it's always been about, you wake up at 4 a.m., you milk the cows, you feed the chickens, you get the eggs, really until 120 years ago, that's what you did. And you were probably a serf on someone else's land, just subsistence, getting the eggs and the food for them and yourself. So then the question is, what's next? Like now we're doing this to 70 or 80, and we have our golden years. We still have 15 years of health decline. The average person is like declining over 15 years and it just gets worse and worse, which that sounds really unattractive. Like that's a big waste of 15 years, maybe, or maybe it's humbling. Maybe it's duality. Maybe you're supposed to feel like shit or lose an arm or some crappy condition. I'd like to think you don't have to. Maybe there's lessons in that. I don't know, but I'm not sure. And I really been thinking deeply about AI and consciousness and all these things. And I don't know that if work becomes optional, what really would become fulfilling? Like how many years do I want to hang out on this planet and be doing dinners and Burning Man and supporting each other? I did that, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think it's gonna fracture society into 2 very specific groups. It's gonna be one group that relies on universal basic income, and you saw this happen during COVID, right? You saw 2 groups were created. There was the people who went and bought alcohol and watched Netflix every day, and that's played video games, and that's all they did was entertain themselves. And then you saw the people who started a new business, became an entrepreneur for the first time, took on a health challenge, got in the best shape of their lives, mastered a new subject, whatever it may be. So I think that's what's going to happen just on a global scale. The people are going to get, half is going to get trapped in the entertainment, the mousetrap. And the other half,
Player One, put the goggles on, go do whatever you do with the goggles on. Meet girls, go travel, whatever you do virtually.
kind of worthless, and the useless eaters, if you will. And then the other group will get more curious and want to go learn more about the world and grow themselves, learn more about themselves, learn more about God and spirituality, learn more about space and exploration. And I think the opportunities for that group are going to be incredible. So you just want to, make sure your kids and everybody out there heading in that direction and not getting caught into the phone and, that stuff.
The biggest thing, I was actually with a new dad, and I know with my kids, and I know it was a little easier with my kids, but they still had iPhones, and they still grow up on all the videos and the DVDs and all that stuff. Again, it may be a high class thing to say as far as I had the time to play with them and all that outdoor time, all that soccer time when they were young, I'm sure with your son, and all that time outdoors, skiing, all those wake surfing, which I know we both share that in common. It was enough. Well, they still live on their phones as college people now, but they get out a lot. They still go back and forth. And again, I understand not everyone can do that if you've got parents working and you just need to be I know that these phones can be, but it seems to me that's going to be even a harder and harder skill as these, I just saw some incredible things at TED about where this is going. And everything's going to be in your headset or your glasses. And so to your point, it really takes a parent that's going to sports, the old music, sports. My son right now, he came home, I can tell he's a little, I wouldn't say he's bored. He's just got a lot of time on his hands. Somebody gave him a mixer. And so last night he spent 5 hours, he's mixing music.
Oh, that's cool.
And that's actually an art. He's taking his hands and he's moving the things. He's trying to figure out
creativity,
how to transition a song and which songs match. And I'm like, that's art. That's cool. So I think as long as we can stay a little bit in this physical world and use our creativity and our artistry in any way. I look at real estate to me at this point and these conversations, this is artistry. I think when you think about what you're going to talk about next and how you're going to guide people, that's artistry. It's creativity. And I think as long as we continue to lean on that, no matter how good artificial intelligence, which I now call collective intelligence, but I call it, intelligence or just CI. So collective human intelligence is going to have this really powerful role, but I still think that human intelligence, which I call HI, and divine intelligence, which is what they call everything, all the software outside of your body. This is the hardware. This is JP. This is the software, right? This is consciousness. That's DI. That's divine intelligence. And I still think that the DI and the HI, that's that creativity. So as long as you're continuing to be the artist and you're generating creativity, intelligence, AI can simulate that creativity. It can even come up with great suggestions. But I believe even as we get through wherever we go to, and I know this is a big topic right now, that there's something about the divine spark that's always just going to be a little different. I don't know, this might be more efficient over here, but there's something about that, to your point, that if you stay creative and you stay curious, there's always going to be a new edge that's going to be different than the simulation that we create through collective intelligence, which we call AI.
It's about partnering with AI, not letting it replace you. But the way I think about it is there's going to be three groups of people. There's going to be the people who are displaced and replaced by AI because they can't adapt. There's going to be the people who are enhanced by it. So I'll put myself in that category. You can put yourself in that category where we're going to learn the tools, and now I can do more with AI to grow my business than I ever could before.
Right.
Software developers, there might be a team of 20 software developers. Well, those are going to get disbanded. It's already happening. So now those 20 people need to make a decision. Are each of them going to open their own studio and have their AI software development partner that now replaces that same team of 10 or 20? And now you've got 20 separate entrepreneurs, and then you'll have the ownership class, which are the people who own a large enough amount of equity in companies like Tesla and whatever, to not have to worry about money anymore, and they can just go do whatever. But it's choose your group. 2 out of 3 are great. But that's how I see the vision playing out, or the future playing out over the next 10 to 20 years. And as long as you're in the proactive groups, then you're good.
Yeah, makes sense. Mike,
Thank you,
was
brother.
a fun little bonus we had.
Little side trail.
Little side track.
Thank you, brother.
To see you, buddy. Hey, hope you enjoyed the episode. Love to hear from you. You can reach me on all the major platforms with Investing on Purpose. And if you want to reach out to me personally, reach out to me at JP Newman on my LinkedIn. Would love to hear from you. You guys have been giving me some amazing feedback. I'm watching the audience grow, and I'm really grateful to you, and hope these episodes can continue helping you on your wealth journey to becoming a true fulfillionaire.